In 1969, it was pretty wild around here. There was a lot of traffic going between here and California, and the locals were freaked out about it.
I looked on the map and I was looking for streams, you know, so Taos looked pretty promising, so I drove north, and then we saw a bunch of ugly people that looked like us.
Moved to Taos and just fell in love with it, coming over looking at the gorge and the mountains, and then it was amazing. Well, the light is unbelievable. The light draws a lot of photographers, a lot of artists. The vistas.
When I first saw New Mexico, and I first saw churches in the mountains, and I walked out into the fields in the morning and looked around, I fell in love with this place.
And then after a while, I lived at New Buffalo commune. I mean, I used to fish and bring fish to the commune.
Everybody grew their own food. Everybody had a pig or a goat or a cow, and it was like the old Wild West.
People came to look, people came to eat, some came to help, but not that many.
We grew quite a bit of stuff there. I mean, it was a real farm that had its successes. There were food stamps, and people would have money here and there that would be used usually for the common good of the place.
It was dirty. There was no running water. The night I got there, there was a big tub of water outside, and there were dirty dishes in it, and there was a fire on it and smoke coming up into people's faces, and there was some hippie chicks, you know, stooped down by over the pan, scrubbing the dishes and trying to get it clean, and it just looked awful.
Well, I was kind of a lost soul who had found a lot of other lost souls to hang out with, and we did a lot of what's the word? Drugs whenever we could find them.
I'd moved here in '62, and in '68 or '69, right in the middle of those 2 years, Reverend Salazar, who had a large church, called a meeting in the middle of our town square, and hundreds of people showed up, and he warned us about the hippies coming, and that they would be bringing drugs and a lot of bad things for the town.
Well, the local people of Taos, the Spanish community really, were a pretty conservative lot, and very Catholic, and we flaunted ourselves in a fairly obnoxious manner, and so we caused a lot of friction.
There was a lot of movement, there was a lot of tension, there were guns going off from time to time, hippie girls were being raped. Hippies tended to be not conscious of the impact that they were making on a conservative local population that was Catholic and Hispanic.
Cops would beat up the hippies, take them outside of town, beat them up and kick them out of town, and it was, I mean, they were getting it all around. And it was pretty violent there for a while. Everybody had a gun. I remember I carried a .25 caliber in my back pocket.
It's too bad. You know, it's too bad that we made this terrible first impression. It took a long time to recover from that.
Saw a lot of violence. And it wasn't pretty, it was ugly, you know, it's just ugly. I remember there was a kid here that walked barefoot in the wintertime and wore white robes and thought he was Jesus, and then we ran into him again out at the hot springs, and he had his 12 disciples.
Maybe once a month they'd have a peyote meeting. It would always be on a Saturday night. Peyote meeting occurs in a teepee, and everybody sits around and eats peyote and throws up, and you do that for about 12 hours. You come out quite in an altered state. It's a pretty powerful thing.
We shouldn't have been doing drugs as much as we were, but in some cases there were things to be learned from them. The Maharishi said, we meditate for years to get to that place of enlightenment, and here in the West you just drop a pill. People were really making an effort to live out of those ideals of brotherhood and sisterhood and equality and living close to the land and honoring the plants and honoring the animals and being gentle with each other.
I think the attitudes started to change when they realized in the back of those tattered jeans and long hair were gold American Express cards.
We gradually outgrew the acting out of the more blatant parts of that movement. We grew up, we had children, we had seat belts, we had car seats, we sent our kids to alternative schools. And gradually, when they saw that we were doing the same things that they were, that we were gardening, that we were trying to make a living, that we were trying to raise our children in a healthy way, we were gradually accepted.